Okay, so here is the station after my ultimate raid of this morning. Raid of this morning? Rage of this morning. So, I managed to get our little test vehicle that I built earlier, which is a little Landra designed for Juna, but I've never actually used it in my playthrough. I then had put on another thing to build, which was my arms for the station, which you can see here. Two lovely arms, which were made by, well, they were actually launched as one big section, docked here, I say docked here, I pointed at the screen just there like an absolute freak, and that is a very worrying wobble. Okay, we have sorted the wobble, which was a pain in the backside. So, to quickly explain, I launched the first module, launched the second section, Bandicam, the game crashed, Bandicam couldn't finish the video because, I don't know, I really just dislike Bandicam. But it's what I paid for, so it's what I use. So, this is the state of our station at the moment. We have built some more arms for it. We have our lovely science modules here. We have, this is from the Station Sciences mod. Station Sciences mod. I really can't speak properly. So we have two cyclotrons, one either side, here and here. These are required for some of the experiments, and some of them require two, so that's why I have two. Then we have the Station Sciences Research Lab, the Station Sciences Zoology Lab, and I have a little extra container here for storing kibble, which is the food for whatever you bring up. Then the spectrometer, which I believe is required for some of the things, but I've never used that in any of my stuff. I also have, I think this is from the Alternative Science Lab, but I'm not quite sure. Either way, this lab section here can store a lot more science, and should, I think, because you can put more scientists in it, you can research faster. But this is going to be what I use for my next sort of load of research. And on that subject, this is the Minma station as it stands at the moment. We have had a little bit of expansion here, and we have to do a little tiny bit of retrofitting. Obviously we have these extra modules that are part of the SSTU group of mod. The launch section for this particular module I've kept attached because, as you can see, it's still got a good amount of fuel, which could fuel the landers. However, this lander here, which is my big lander, it's been sat here for a while, unused. This one is a bit too heavy to do what I wanted to do. I sent it up here just to sort of transport it. It was part of one of the ships. However, the light lander that I use, I had a small accident with it, and I ended up having to jettison the base section just to get my scientist back up to the station. So my problem at the moment is that I don't have a base section for landing it, so I can't gather any more science. I'm going to keep this station here for retrieving science. However, I'm going to send it all, I'm not going to process it in this lab, I'm going to send it all back to our new station to run the science there once I get the scientists on board. As you can see at the moment, I've got 1500 science in this, which I am just going to transmit. And in this section, because it has two science labs, I didn't realise this core that I was using to send stuff up was actually a science lab. This one also has, well, not much science. It's got 493 data. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm actually going to just get rid of any of the supplies that are stored in it. It does have a little bit, and then I'm going to undock that module and send it, either re-enter it or just send it straight back down. It does have the ability to re-enter it. It's got plenty of parachutes and heat shield, but I'm going to get rid of it just because it's in the way, it's wasting space. So just a quick 80s montage on returning this little section back to Kerbin. It served its use, its primary use, which was filling us up with supplies, getting the whole load up there. We still have a couple of years worth of supplies at the Minma station. So at many times normal speed, we will just adjust our orbit. get us punted back down to Karborundum. Now this is a bit of a waste purely because I still have data that could be processed in it, but it's such... There seems to be an issue when you have two space labs where you'll have data, and when you try to transmit it, it just vanishes, you'll lose it, so that's why I'm taking off this second lab. So on with the show. And after another 80 odd days, do the usual don't explode prayer. And we realise it has not exploded. This is good. I forgot to order a delivery. That is not so good. So this is just another module that I've created that's going to add more space on it for material kits and specialised parts. Not too many specialised parts, I've lowered the ratio. I still can't figure out, I've been too lazy to research what the ratio is for average building. I think it's a quarter, but it could be a tenth and I just haven't looked at it. But you figure it out as you play. I prefer to do things that way anyways. So, this is just getting this section docked and then onto our big money harvester. So this is my multiple stage rocket to throw a spaceship up that can harvest more Karborundum than we've ever brought back before. I've figured out that each 2.5 meter container full of Karborundum that I bring back is worth about 60 million, between 60 and I think 75 million, depending on where I land it on Kerbin. If I can land it back at the runway, I reckon I should be able to get about 75 million for a container. Now, the issue that we've had, the issue I've had so far is they're ridiculously heavy. So this is the ship I've built to counteract that. It's taken over half of what I've got left. It's about 27 million in total. And it was too big to be built in the space dock that I've currently got access to on the tech tree. So I built it on a base and threw it up into orbit with a massively oversized rocket. Well, I say massively oversized, it was just about adequate enough. As you can see here, I've still got to do some final adjustments to the orbit. I have to bring up the main engines to do that. So this thing is, if you can look at the delta V in the top left, if your resolution's good enough for that, I've got something in the region of 27,000 delta V. The reason I have so much is because I need enough to get down to the low solar orbit to be able to use the harvester on the front of this. I need to circularize once I'm at the solar orbit, and then I need to have enough to get back. And the problem is that with the weight of Karborundum, this ship is going to be ridiculously heavy. In the actual VAB, when I had a look at it, if this ship is entirely full of Karborundum, it only has about 9,000 delta V, so I'm kind of hoping to manage that. The other interesting thing about this is I'm using the engines. These are my favourite engines that are on the DSEV mod from Angel, again part of the Pathfinder and things like that. And these engines have a very high delta V, but they have to be started, so you have to turn them on. It requires a lot of electricity to turn them on. That's the reason I have 4 reactors on this ship, is just to turn them on so that I have enough charge in that second of activating the engines. Or not that second, it'll take a minute or so. Here in the centre of the screen we have the Darkside Technologies centrifuge, habitation centrifuge. Mine has had some modifications. I've tried to bring it in line with the USI mod. I use USI LS Life Support. I've tried to bring it in line with that, but it's not as efficient as the rest of the USI LS mod, because for me it's earlier. You can get it earlier in the tech tree, so I didn't make it as efficient. I think it's about half as efficient. And this ship, the entire point is to have a small crew, get down, circularise around the sun, harvest as much Karborundum as possible, and because we're circularised, we should be able to pick our own orbit to get back quickly. It should hopefully take 2 years for the entire trip. Last time I did it, I think it took about 2.5 because of... Now, what you can just see in the background at the moment is the same SSTO that we used earlier, delivering supplies up to the station. I'm just using this to add a couple of additional dock modules onto our new Karborundum harvester. So all I'm doing is I'm using one of the Apollo modules that comes with the SSTU mod as my little space tug. These don't require to be manned. At the moment it's unmanned. It does have an IVA, so you'll see it if anybody's in there. And I'm just using it completely remotely to attach two of the modules, nice and simply. And that'll give me a bit more habitation. I'm going to bring up some more after this and mess about with the configuration until I've got an equal balanced sort of habitation versus supplies for the 3 crew members that I want to keep on this ship for the entire time. It can support more, but there's no point in me having more. I just think 3 is a bit more sort of realistic for this kind of mission. Now, the one mistake that I have made with this and I have noticed is that there's a reaction wheel inside the centrifuge, but I haven't put any other reaction wheels on it. I think there's a small reaction wheel in the cupola, which is the main sort of cockpit for this, but there isn't much else, and that becomes a major problem in turning this thing, because at the moment it has no Karborundum in it, and it is so heavy with the liquid hydrogen that it's a major issue for me to try and turn them to maneuver it anywhere. Something I'm going to fix in a future design, but for the moment I'm stuck with this. This is all I can sort of do. But that's the sort of design process. You figure out things, and this is why I quite like doing these launches. I'll revert something if I have a glitch or an explosion. But once something's up in orbit, or once something's where I want to try it, I'll try and manage as possible. And if it means that I have to pull over the sea and try and ditch and save the crew, then that's what happens. So here we go, just coming back in for another landing. This is a bit of an awkward thing. I've said it before, I would kill for a mod that can show you your centre of lift versus your centre of gravity. And this is the point where I realised I made a horrible mistake because I haven't fixed this SSTO. It still has this annoying problem where the gear won't go down, the front gear won't go down because it thinks it's inside the cargo bay. So you have to open the cargo bay and retrieve it, which is what I've noticed around about here. And yeah, so I struggle with this. Try and get it landed in the usual fashion. And luckily it's nice and solid. So that's us for this time. I will be putting up more once I manage to fix Bandicam. I apologise about the resolution on this. This is an ongoing sort of learning thing for me, doing these videos. But I recently changed the format of Bandicam and then realised that it didn't work in Vegas. So I've had to convert all of the videos just so that I can show everything viable at the moment. So thanks for that, and I'll see you next time.